Hi my geniuses, welcome to my channel Learn with Carol. Today we're going to be dealing with speaking in Ielts. We've covered all the modules in my previous videos, so you could go and refer to them. The episode links are in the description box below. This episode is the end of the Ielts series, but something amazing is coming up from next week. So if you're new to the channel, just click that subscribe button down below and to its right, the bell icon to receive alerts and updates about my channel. We've done a lot of practice tests in each module, and today we're doing speaking, in which I'm going to give you a detailed information of the entire test and how it goes about, with few practice tests towards the end. So let's get started. What is that we're going to cover in speaking? Overview today would be the structure of a speaking test, the format of it, marking criteria, common topics and words, frequently asked questions, and sample questions and tips. Now the structure. The speaking test is face-to-face with an examiner in a room. There is only one speaking test for all candidates. Academic and general candidates take the same speaking test. So if you're doing computer-delivered Ielts, you will still have to face the examiner in an interview mode, and the speaking test remains the same for everyone. It is recorded so that you can ask for a remark if you wish later. This is an informal speaking test, and the examiner who asks the question will decide your results at the end of the test. The test will last between 11 to 14 minutes, not more, not less. The examiner will control the time and the length of your answers. Now, as soon as you go in, you would find your examiner. It's just you and your examiner in your room. You would find a recording unit where she would start recording. She would begin with an ID check to verify your information and then move on to part 1. So after the ID check, part 1 begins. Part 1 lasts for 4 to 5 minutes and begins with introduction. The examiner will ask you questions about familiar topics, which is quite personal. That is information about you, your home, your studies, your work, your hobbies and interests, and such. So these would be so the part 1 will comprise of between 8 to 10 questions and would cover within 4 to 5 minutes. The questions would be more, but the answer should be short. After part 1, they move to part 2, and this would last for 3 to 4 minutes. And it's based on the candidate giving a short talk about a particular topic. You'll be given a card with a familiar topic and several prompts in the card itself. So this cue card will have the question to what you need to include in your talk. And you need to include those topics in your answer. You have 1 minute to prepare for this talk, and in that 1 minute you need to look at the question carefully and then prepare your notes towards the side. They would give you a paper and a pencil to prepare, so make sure you utilize that 1 minute totally in making a rough skeleton of your speech, and you could write keywords beside the question so that you could prompt yourself while speaking. You do not have a choice of topic, but the topics are based on your own experience, such as a person or a place you know, or an event or an activity you've experienced. So the examiner may ask you a brief question towards the end. So after part 2 is over, it would just move on to the part 3, which would last for another 4 to 5 minutes. And the questions are going to be lesser, like 4 to 5 questions, but you would be expected to give longer answers. They allow you to discuss more abstract issues and ideas. Part 3 is a discussion between you and the examiner. So you are expected to be able to respond to questions on familiar and unfamiliar topics and to speak at a length. So you would be assessed on different marking criteria, which we would see here. Under marking criteria, the first thing is fluency and cohesion. So 25% of your mark goes for fluency and cohesion, which comprises of the flow, the smoothness, and the coherence. So all of these fall under the criteria of fluency, which accounts for 25% of your final mark for your Ielts speaking. Fluency will relate to the flow, smoothness, and coherence of your speech, as well as hesitations and pauses. So flow is about your ability to keep talking. If you're aiming for a band score 6 and above, this is very, very important. You must show the ability to answer at length rather than just giving short answers. Smoothness relates to how often you break your speech with pauses, hesitations, self-corrections, and silences. All of this interrupts the flow and stops the smoothness of your speech. So if you're aiming for a band score 6 or 7 and above, it's important that you avoid any long pauses and to avoid repeating yourself. The next one is coherence, and this is about being understood. So there's no point having a good flow with smooth speech if you're not talking in any logical order. So this means organizing your ideas so that the listener can understand and also use some linking devices to help the understanding better. Vocabulary is termed as lexical resource. It just means that you'll be able to use different words in English in order to express several thoughts. So they would notice if you're repeating a particular word again and again for the same meaning, or you're able to use different other words and synonyms for the same meaning. The next one is grammar. 25% of your mark goes for grammar, in which they will check your sentence formation, your cohesiveness, and your appropriate pauses. The next one is pronunciation, and 25% of your final mark goes for pronunciation, and that is based on how you pronounce your words. So you don't have to have a particular British accent or an American accent or any other country accent or even your native accent. It doesn't matter. Accents don't matter usually. It is about how you pronounce words based on phonetics. So every letter in English has a phonic sound. So you have to follow that phonic sound in order to pronounce properly. So what are the common topics we would be encountering in this speaking test, but especially when it comes to all three parts? Your topic might be under one of these. It could be under travel and holidays, friends, technology, sport, food, education, weather, environment, music, animals, books and films, health, work, hometown, art, childhood, family, visitors, routine, shopping, and many more. So coming to lexical resource. So time phrases. You should use signposts to help the listener understand when you're talking about the past or the present. So you could use time phrases like now, at the moment, at present, right now, these days, nowadays, in the past, before, then, at that time, years ago, when I was younger. Those are the examples for time phrases. The next one is expressing ideas. So the examples of these are like, I think one important thing is, I guess one difference is, or you could say, I suppose the main difference between X and Y is. So these are the way you start expressing ideas. The next one is causes and solution. Examples for this are like, I guess it's because, the main reason is, it was caused by, because, I suppose the best way to deal with the problem is, I reckon the only answer is 2, the best way to solve this is, and many more examples. The next one is giving examples. These connective devices are for giving examples in your answers. The most common and natural way to use is the word like. So please note that like can't be used as a linking device in Ielts writing, but it can be used in speaking. So the other ways of saying or giving examples are, for example, for instance, such as, and like. Don't use it. Please avoid using the word like during writing. The next thing is being very clear. So how do you do this? You use these simple natural expressions to explain your point again more clearly or to get your answer back on track. So you could say, what I mean is, what I want to say is, as I was saying, as I said earlier. These are the types of ways you show that you are trying to become clear about your topic. The next thing is compare and contrast. Using connecting words to compare and contrast or give concessions. So the answer could be like but, on the other hand, while, although, or. Adding more information You could use and, also, as well as, and also, as well as, another reason is, and many more. So let's see some of the frequently asked questions. So if I don't answer a question, will it affect my score? If you perform well and produce good English in other questions, you still can get a good score. Struggling with just one question while the others are fine should not affect your score adversely. Will I get a low score if I can't think of many ideas? So the IELTS speaking test only assesses your English language. It does not assess your ideas. So this is very different to IELTS writing test. So IELTS writing assesses your ideas, your answers, and how you develop ideas and how you present them. But IELTS speaking tests only your vocabulary, your grammar, your fluency, and your pronunciation. Will the examiner decide my score in the test or later on? Your score will be decided by the examiner who conducts the test, and the score will be given at the end of the test. By the end of the speaking part 3, the examiner will have decided your score already. Does the examiner have model answers? No, there are no model answers used for assessing you in the IELTS speaking test. Each student will use different English and give different answers. So your score is only calculated on the English language you produce, the level and the range of your English, and the accuracy of your English. Are all the parts of the IELTS speaking test equally important? So the IELTS speaking test is graded by your performance on all parts of the test. So the examiner will check your English language using the 4 marking criteria for each part of the test. Now, speaking part 1, if you are strong in speaking part 1, but not in other parts, then you will not get a good score. You must do well in all parts to get a good score. Most of the questions are quite easy in part 1 and are about yourself, your country. So doing well in this part is expected for high-level students. If you give very short answers, for example, yes, I do, or no, I don't, you are not providing the examiner with a good range of language for him to be able to assess you. So that means your potential score is not high when you enter part 2, and it will, of course, consequently affect your overall score. So in speaking part 2, the examiner has a chance to sit and listen to your English without interrupting you. So giving a short speech of only 1 minute will give you less chance to demonstrate the level of English and less chance to show fluency. So it is still possible to get a good score with only 1 minute or 1.5 minute speech, but only if the language you use is very good and your fluency is very strong during that time. So by the end of the speaking part 2, the examiner has a rough idea of your band score. Adding more information and details to each prompt is a way of offering the examiner a broader range of your language ability. Description offers the examiner more vocabulary and fluency. So talking with feeling can offer better intonations. Explaining in detail can offer better sentence structure and grammar. Giving examples of past and ideas for the future can offer more grammar tenses. So try to find ways to showcase your English in part 2. So speaking part 3, it's a chance for this examiner to ask more in-depth questions which will require more skill in English to answer. So the questions here are abstract and about the world rather than yourself. This requires a better level of English to answer well. So this is a chance for you to boost your score by providing the examiner with a better range of vocabulary, grammar, fluency, and pronunciation. Giving examples and detailed explanation of your ideas naturally will produce better language which will help your score. The next question is, can I ask questions to the examiner? You can ask the examiner to explain words and to explain the question in the IELTS speaking part 3. This is useful because the examiner will rephrase the question using different words and make it easier to understand. You can also ask the examiner to repeat the question, just like how you do in part 1 if you haven't heard him or her properly. So the way you ask back should be like, could you explain that please? So then the examiner will rephrase the question for you. Or you could say, what do you mean exactly? Or you could say, could you explain what X means, please? What does X mean? The things that you should not ask the examiner. Have you been there? What do you think? Where do you come from? Do you agree with me? Can you change the question? Can you give me an example? Can you give me a different topic? What are your opinions? So these are the things that you shouldn't be asking the examiner these questions. So how much time I have to think for these questions? So thinking time, sometimes you need time to think about the question and think of your own answer. So one way to do that is to ask the examiner to repeat the question. It's a useful way to gain time to think. Alternatively, you can say, It's an interesting question. I've never really thought about it before. I suppose you could use this method so that you can use these words, this particular few seconds time gap to start thinking and getting a rough skeleton of your answer. The next question is, will I lose marks if I ask the examiner to repeat the question? No. Should I speak slow or fast? So how fast should you speak? As long as you keep a steady pace, you will be fine. Avoid speaking very slow because the listener can get lost in what you're trying to say if it takes you a long time to say it. Alternatively, what you can do is don't speak very fast as you may lose your coherence and the words might not be clear or easy to understand. So keep a steady, even pace when you're talking. Extend your answers. Avoid long pauses. Don't repeat yourself too much. Avoid correcting yourself more than once or twice. Keep a logical order to what you're saying. So the next thing is, can I use wanna and gonna? So it is fine to use contractions like this. Contractions are word joined in pronunciations. It will actually boost your score for pronunciation because it shows you're a regular English speaker. For example, what is wanna? Wanna means want to. I really want to go to the cinema today. The majority of students want to travel before starting university. Going to is contracted as gonna. He's gonna visit his grandmother this evening. The local council are gonna improve the roads in this area. So wanna and gonna are only used in spoken English and not in formal writing. It's fine to use these words in your IELTS speaking test and in fact will help your pronunciation band score. Can I use contractions? Yes, you can use contractions like can't instead of cannot, shouldn't have instead of saying should not have. Those kind of contractions are good to use in speaking test. Next thing is, can I use filler? So fillers are words that we can use to fill gaps while we think. It means that we can continue speaking by filling in gaps. So here's an example of a filler. Well, to be honest, it isn't something I've thought about before. Let me see. I guess men and women, so these are fillers, like saying, well, let me see, I've thought about it before. But instead of that, we tend to use other fillers like these are not words. And are sounds. They represent a broken down language. So it shows the examiner that you are not able to continue speaking with English. So examples like I suppose that I think well, I guess I would add a garden outside or a balcony. Instead of that, you would say, well, let me see. I haven't actually considered improving my home before. I'm not exactly sure what I would do, to be honest, but I guess if I had to choose. So these are the fillers that you could use. Is it possible to lie? Yes, you can lie. It won't affect your score, but it isn't necessary. It's better to tell the truth. Telling the truth has advantages. There is no reason to lie. Lying will not increase your score. If you don't have a clear answer, just say so. You are marked on your ability to communicate in English, not your own knowledge or ideas. So, for example, what is your favorite museum? I don't have one. I don't have much interest in history or culture, and I think the last time I went to one was when I was a child. So this kind of answer is actually excellent. It answers directly and explains more. It also uses the present simple and past simple grammar tenses. So, do you like cooking? No, actually I don't. My mother always cooks for me. So to be honest, I find it incredibly tedious and a waste of my time. And anyway, I'd rather use my time more productively. So this is a full answer which offers different grammar tenses and range of language features. Lying requires imagination. So it is better try to focus on language rather than trying to be creative at the same time. When you say the truth, you usually have better intonation, which will help your pronunciation score, and matching your meaning with your tone of voice is very important for your pronunciation score. It's hard to add extra details when you lie, so it requires too much effort to add all the extra details to one lie. So under exam pressure, it is hard to lie and create an answer at the same time. So sticking with the truth is easier. Adapting the truth is easier than a huge creative life. So if you're asked to talk about a book you recently read, instead you can talk about a book you read 1 year ago, but say it was recent. It is a white lie, but all details you will be truthful. This will make it easier. So when it comes to IELTS speaking test, don't be shy. Enjoy the chat with the examiner. Your ideas are not important, so your knowledge is also not going to be tested. Say your ideas with confidence. Showcase your language skills. Simple ideas explained using excellent English can actually get you a band score 9. Try and review topics. Think of your experiences relating to this topic. If the topic is a museum, think of museums you've been to or would like to go to. Remember your past experiences. Speak from the heart. Your English is better when you do that way. Learn to express yourself using your own language. Imagine talking about your experiences and your views. Don't limit your answers to only 2 sentences. Be more natural with your answer. If you have more information to give, then give it. So speaking part 1 is for 4 to 5 minutes and for about 12 questions maximum. So if your fluency is strong, you'll be able to give longer answers. If you often hesitate when you answer, then you'll be wasting your time and your answers will need to be shorter. But if you have strong fluency, then don't limit your answers to only few sentences. To get a high score in fluency, you must show you're able to speak at length without much effort. If your answer is too long, the examiner will stop you, move on to the next question. That is not a bad thing. It's just a natural part of the test. There are no questions on the topic card. There are prompts on the card. Prompts are there to guide you, nothing more than that. So to give a full talk, you must add much information to your talk rather than only following the prompts. This is your main chance in the test to show your fluency. Use this opportunity and give lots of description and information. If the prompt asks who was present, you can add why they were there, how close you were to those people, how they traveled to the wedding. You choose what extra information to add, for example. Okay, now let's see a couple of examples in part 1 based on the topic work. The examiner asks you quite a few questions and you would have to give her a short answer. Do you work or are you a student? At the moment I'm studying. I'm doing a graduate degree in molecular biology at the Vanderbilt University. That's it. That's your answer. Why did you choose that subject? I've always loved life sciences, particularly biology. And when I received my bachelor's degree, I took a research internship in a laboratory where I studied interactions between proteins. And then I understood that I want to pursue my career in biochemistry or molecular biology. Can you describe yourself as a good student? Well, overall, I think I'm a good student. I'm not an eager beaver nor the teacher's pet, but I'm good at scientific subjects and most importantly, I like studying. Do you study English now? Yes, of course. I've taken an intensive course this year where I've attended classes 3 times a week. And I plan on pursuing my studies in the future too. Do you enjoy studying at school? I've never really liked school. I'm not a bookworm and a lot of humanities subjects seem too boring to me. However, the workload was not too big. The other good thing about school is able to be seeing your friends, and fortunately, I had wonderful classmates. Part 2. Now, have a look at the card and prepare a monologue. Describe a period of time from your studies that was the most difficult for you so far. You should say when it was, why was it hard, what you were doing at that time. So now you have 1 minute to prepare your answer. During that 1 minute, you would be given a paper and a pencil to prepare. So you could write notes under this question. So when? You could write the year, location, and what was the setting of the issue or setting of the moment. Why was it hard? So just write keywords as the reason, what you were doing at that time. So your setting at that point. So just give keywords near these questions. When, why, what. So write it on the paper when, why, and what. And beside when, write the keywords for when. Beside why, write the keywords for why. Beside what, write the keywords for what. And those keywords should prompt you and help you to be able to speak in an order. So let's see how it could be answered. So she would say, your time starts now. After she switches on the timer, and then you start talking. I would like to talk about my last school year. It was really difficult due to enormous amounts of homework I had to do and all the exams I had to prepare for. So I studied hard, having no time to goof around. Moreover, I forgot a lot of things from the school curriculum. That's why I had to do a lot of revision. But despite the tough preparation, I managed to set aside some time to rest and interact with my friends and family. After all, my efforts were not in vain. I passed all my exams well and was admitted to the university of my dream. So this may seem short to you, but it is perfect for you to get a good band score. Let's see part 3. So based on work and school and study, are the questions coming on. What are some essential qualities every teacher should have? As for me, so see the way they've started, as for me. Or according to me, you could start that way. Every teacher should be able to catch students' attention. It is very important to make your subject interesting to others. Also, teachers should be a subject specialist and a kind, helpful person. What are some pros of studying on a distance learning course? To be honest, I think it's very advantageous to study in such a way. It gives you more time flexibility, especially if you have a job. Not to mention that it is fairly cheap compared to face-to-face classes. Does everybody get equal opportunities to study? Definitely not. I think it really depends on the country you live in. Moreover, it depends on your financial capability. Some schools and universities are just too expensive. Only a small fraction of people can afford to study there. So let's see another example based on books. Do you enjoy reading? Yes, absolutely. A great way to relax to learn something new is to peruse a book. I'm so addicted to reading that sometimes I can't even fall asleep without an hour of bedtime reading. Do you like watching movies? No, not really. If I have some free time, I'd rather read an interesting book. Books leave us a lot of space for imagination, while in movies everything is spelled out for us. That's why I find films boring. What is the last book you read and did you like it? The last book I read is Theatre, written by William Somerset Maugham, and I absolutely enjoyed it. Maugham is a favorite writer of all times, and I read this novel from cover to cover in 2 days. I was truly captivated by the characters and the unraveling of the plot. How often do you go to the cinema with your friends? Quite often, to be honest. I like catching the latest movies with my friends, so we go to the cinema almost every week. I especially like action movies and sci-fi films. Part 2. Now, have a look at the card and prepare a monologue. Describe a book or a film that had a strong impact on you. You should say what was it, when you read it or saw it, how it influenced you, and say if you liked it and why. So take these questions: what, when, how, and why. So write those down. Against those questions, you need to write your keywords. A book that I'd like to talk about is called Flowers for Algernon, written by Daniel Keyes. You won't believe I picked up this novel from a shelf in a bookstore because it had a beautiful cover. Although a proverb says, "Don't judge a book by its cover," I did exactly the opposite, and the book turned out to be one of the greatest things I've ever read. In fact, this novel is very intense and thought-provoking. It is set in form of diary entries of the protagonist, mentally disabled man Charlie, whose IQ changes after brain surgery. It drastically changed the way I looked at how intelligence influences people's attitude to others and to the world in general. Also, I had to overthink how many boundaries does new knowledge open and how many mentally disabled people are treated in this society. In general, the book was somewhat tear-jerking for me, and I still highly enjoyed it and would recommend it to anyone looking for a powerful and inspirational read. Part 3. Why do you think cinemas are still popular nowadays, even though people can watch movies in their homes? I believe that there are several reasons for it. First of all, watching a film on a big screen is a lot more fun than watching it at home. Not to mention the fact that you won't be able to see the movie on a DVD as soon as in the movie theater. You'll have to wait a couple of months for the DVD release of the movie. Moreover, a lot of people like the atmosphere of the cinema with its half-light halls, popcorn, and sound effects. What do you think about ebooks? In my opinion, a paperback or a hardback books are much better. Reading a book from an e-reader doesn't feel like the same for me. I adore the sensation of turning pages and that special smell of paper. I think this look and feel of a book can never be replaced by an e-reader, but I do understand the usefulness of electronic books. It's very convenient to be able to carry hundreds of books in your pockets and have a possibility to read them at any time. Also, e-readers support keyword search, which paperbacks obviously do not. So, thank you so much for being with us through this Ielts series. Episode 1 to 8 is in the description box below. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Click on the bell icon to get updates on my upcoming videos, and especially don't miss my new series beginning next week. It's going to be amazing. So for Ielts, remember, practice is key for achieving a band score. Hard work only pays. Good luck. See you in the next series. Learn with Carol.